Welcome to the League of Women Voters, Stevens Point Area 2019 General Election Candidate Forum. I'm Christine Neidlein. I'm filling in for Deb Knippel, our local co-coordinator, who's still at work. The League was formed in 1920 after a 75-year struggle to pass the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. The Stevens Point League began in 1961. In addition to voting rights advocacy, the LWV encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. But the League is always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. The League has a long history, almost 100 years. We're going to be having several centennial events to celebrate that in the coming years, so watch for information on that. Almost 100 years of becoming informed and taking action on important issues facing our country. Membership is open to women and men 16 years of age or over. Membership materials are located at the table in the corner there. If you are interested, you can pick some up or let us know, leave us your name and contact info if you just like more information about League. If you need assistance or have a question, you may ask any one of our members who are identified by wearing a League button. And remember to vote on April 2nd. And I'll turn our program over to our moderator for this segment, Sue Buck.
Thank you, Christine, and good evening, and welcome to this forum for Stevens Point Common Council candidates. My name is Sue Buck, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area, and as Christine said, I will be moderator for this forum. The Stevens Point Common Council includes alderpersons representing 11 districts. Alderpersons from the odd number wards are elected the first Tuesday in April in odd number years. This year, on April 2nd, Stevens Point residents will elect alderpersons from city districts 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. All official candidates with opposition have been invited to attend this forum. Therefore, we have invited candidates from District 1, 5, and 9 to take part in our forum. And as a side note, we also had District 3, but one of our candidates withdrew. We offered the other candidate the opportunity to come tonight. She recently had surgery and she decided to decline and take care of herself, which we totally understand. These positions are elected for 2-year terms. Those alderpersons elected in April will earn a salary of $5,300 for this coming year. The Stevens Point Common Council oversees an annual budget of $24,092,000. Candidates themselves must be present, and we have a full complement here. However, a candidate who is not able to attend may provide written information at the candidates table along with other candidates' information, which is right outside the door. Tonight, 7 candidates are present. Running for alderperson District 1 seat is Tori Jennings and Shannon Simmerling. Melissa Johnson and Brian Georgella are on the ballot for District 5. And running for the alderperson District 9 seat are Polly Dalton and Mary McComb. Brian Bolio, I knew I was not going to make that. Sorry, I apologize. Bolio is also present as he has registered as a write-in candidate for the District 9 position. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and to provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to you and this community, I will review the format, time, and terms for this forum. This has also been reviewed by the candidates. Each candidate will first have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and to make an opening statement. Candidates will have the opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement, and they will have 1.5 minutes to respond to questions. And of course, I will repeat questions if you need me to do so. Candidates will respond first to some questions submitted by the League and then questions from the audience. I do need to emphasize that questions from the audience must be addressed to all of the candidates. If you want to submit a question, please motion to one of the ushers who are around the room with index cards and pencils, and they will come to you and give you one and collect it. The League reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and to avoid duplication. Our timers are located at the front of the table for our candidates. A green folder will be held up when the time starts. A yellow folder indicates 30 seconds remain, and the red folder means the time has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence and then please stop, so the next candidate may begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the questions and fair to the participants. The moderator reserves the right to interrupt to ensure that these ground rules are observed. The order of response to each question will be rotated. We will alternate which candidate answers the question first. The order of the opening statements will be chosen by random drawing of the candidates' names. So we will now begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. And here's my handy-dandy drawing box. And our first opening statement will be by Shannon Simmerling.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Shannon Semmerling, proudly representing candidacy for District 1 alderperson. My husband, Wayne, who's here in the room with me this evening, and I have lived in the Tribeca neighborhood, the triangle below Clark Street, for over 18 years now. We love our downtown community, nestled between rental properties, college students on one side, retirees across from us. And I, for the last 20 plus years now, have been engaged in our community, working in various different industries in communication, always in communication leadership roles, until 2014 when I established my own independent practice, public relations, and volunteering for multiple organizations throughout our community. That experience, both professionally and civically, and through all the volunteer work, I believe has earned me some influence that I have a responsibility to share with our community, the knowledge that I've learned in a way that will help all of us. I'm deeply committed to education, to literacy as a volunteer tutor with the Learn for Life program, and just recently completed the United Way of Portage County capital campaign for our community. So perhaps you've seen my name prior to today, at least through that forum, widely known throughout the community, and lifting us all up through that process. If elected, this is my first opportunity to serve in local politics, so very, very new experience, but I don't believe that this is any different than the community relations, community development work that I've been doing for the last 20 years. It's just a different hat and an opportunity to knock on a few more doors. So thank you for the opportunity again to be here tonight, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next opening statement is Mary McComb.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mary McComb, and I'm currently the alder for District 9. Long before I decided to run for alder, I was involved in civic activities. I was on the library board for several years. I was a leader in planning and implementing the Shiro Family Dog Park, which is a great facility. My business was awarded the 2014 Ally of the Year Award from the Wisconsin LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I spoke at city and committee meetings as well as wrote letters to the editor about civic things like historical preservation, urban sprawl, and of course the dog park. I also co-wrote the solid waste chapter. I've given a shout out to Melissa, that's where we met, of the 2008 Eco-Municipality Report. So I will enter my third term as alder with not only experience before I was alder, but all the learning and accomplishments I've gathered during my 4 years as your alder. I'm pretty clear about my platform, neighborhoods, good thoroughfares, and sustainability. I'll bring not only my experience as a hometown gal, but the other experience I have. Unlike my opponents, I do have a record of local activism, and I'm looking forward to this forum so that I can say some more things about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Brian Bolio.
All right, well, my name is Brian Bolio. Mary and I are actually somewhat neighbors. So I decided to enter the race for District 9 based off some of my neighbors asking me to step up and do it. I've been going through the decision about a year or so, thinking about stepping up and being more active in our community. I've lived here my whole life. I was born here. My family history dates back into the 1800s, living in Stevens Point. Stepping up to be an alder is a good way to give back to your community, to help form decisions that will affect all the people in your community. The way that I was asked to represent is to represent the people as a whole, to listen to what they want. So somewhat bringing it back to basics. Granted, I don't have the governing experience as some of our current elders and maybe some candidates, but it's a learning curve and I'm willing to take on that challenge. I do have a criminal justice law degree that has statutory based background in its education, so I do understand how ordinances, laws, and zoning stuff is applied and how it's executed. So hopefully, if elected, I can be a representative for not only District 9 but every citizen in Stevens Point fairly and help bring the community together.
Thank you. Tori Jennings.
Hi, everyone. I am really happy to be here, and I want to express my gratitude to the League of Women Voters and all of you who are here supporting our democratic process. So this is really important. When I moved to Stevens Point 10 years ago to begin teaching at UWSP, I sank deep roots in this community, and I became very involved in city government long before I considered running for city council in 2017. I'm originally from Colorado. I grew up in a small mountain town near Pikes Peak. I was a firefighter for the City of Littleton Fire Department on the outskirts of Denver for 13 years, where I was a firefighter, a paramedic, an engineer, and a captain in the late 80s and early 90s when very few women were in the fire service. During that time, I completed my bachelor's degree, making me the first person in my family to go to college. I left the fire service in my late 30s to attend graduate school, and I have a PhD in anthropology. In addition to my graduate coursework and teaching and research at UW-Madison, I became a Michael Fields Agricultural Institute policy intern and was able to spend some time in Washington, D.C., seeing policy making at the national level. I also completed the UW-Madison Farm and Industry short course, and I spent a year milking dairy cows on a small 40-cow farm in southwest Wisconsin. I'm running for city council because I care about quality of life for everyone who lives here, and I want to bring about positive change for our community and the great environment we all share here. I enjoy solving problems for constituents. I feel privileged to serve our community. And the longer I serve on council, the more humbled I am by the project. We are facing complicated and challenging issues in our community. Big decisions coming up, and experience will matter. And I spend some sleepless nights wondering about the decisions I contribute to. But I'm really excited to be here, and I hope to be elected to continue serving the 1st District. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Gergella.
Hi, I'm Brian Gergella. Born and raised in Stevens Point, so I've been here my whole life. And I've worked at just about every job, it seems, that you can do in this town. I worked for a lot of local companies, mom and pop operations. I'll show my age. My first job was actually pumping gas, if anybody remembers that here. But now I currently work at a local civil engineering firm where I assist in budget planning and also building 3D models and everything for heavy civil construction for highway jobs and large commercial sites. I've never been involved in local politics. But this past year, I was urged by friends and neighbors wondering if I would step up. And at the last minute, I decided that, I've been reaping the benefits of Stevens Point my whole life. It's time to give back a little bit. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Polly Dalton.
Hello, I'm Polly Dalton, running for candidacy of District 9 Alderperson. Thank you once again to the League for hosting us and providing this forum. I moved here a few years ago from Appleton to start a farm, and I moved here because somebody asked me to, and I think that's a pretty common reason why I got involved, and what I hope to take on with this leadership role is providing an opportunity and a platform to ask other citizens and residents, community members of all levels, experiences, ages, whatever, to get involved. And I moved out here to start a farm, and we've been farming now for going into our 5th season. And recently we transitioned our farm to a cooperative ownership, so it's not just me and my partner owning it, but rather there are now 10 of us that own it, and this provided us an opportunity, rather rare, to actually purchase some land. In addition, I own a small hard cider company here in Stevens Point, so we work with a lot of local farmers, and basically my days are filled with solving problems and trying to see into the future as how we cannot create the same problems again. And then in the wintertime, I spend my cold season hibernating by substituting in the Stevens Point Area School District, and that's really provided me a very broad spectrum of how policies and on local, national, state level really impact families and our kids today, from kindergarten all the way up to the young people thinking about what exactly they want to do with their lives today. So I'm looking forward to this discussion here tonight, and I hope for the opportunity to provide a voice for more people to participate in our local democratic forum, and yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder who's next.
Yeah. Gee. Yeah. How about you, Melissa?
How about me? All right, I prepared remarks because anyone who knows me, if I don't have them written, I will go on and it'll be like 9 o'clock and you'll still be sitting here. So my name is Melissa Johnson, and I am the current alder for the 5th District, and I'm council president. I'm also a supervisor on the county board. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for their continued and relentless efforts to empower voters and defend democracy. This forum is one example of that leadership. During the spring of 1973, I left my junior year at SPASH. I never returned. I married and had the first of my 3 children at 17. When I told my friends of my situation, including Alder Niebel, who was then Cindy Michaels, that's how long I've known her, they told me to stay, to continue towards my dream of changing the world. And for a very long time, I thought that that dream was just that, a dream. But over the years, I've come to learn that changing the world comes in many different forms and happens without us even knowing it. From leading a peace march at 13 from Ben Franklin to the draft office downtown, to serving as PTO president at Plover Whiting at 30, to starting the first ever Earth Day event at UW-Manitowoc at 43, to leading the effort to build a new future for the healthcare center at 63. These seemingly tiny steps along my life's journey have served as my leadership framework and have built my core values of integrity, respectfulness, honesty, and helpfulness. It has been a distinct pleasure and honor to gather all of those life lessons, and yes, even the ones where I failed, to serve as alder for District 5. I have enjoyed listening to diverse opinions, learning of new concepts, gaining insights into the past, and evaluating data to create public policy that keeps Stevens Point the preferred place to live, work, visit, and do business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for your opening statements. And we'll move into the question portion of our forum, and we'll ask our first lead question. And we will begin with the candidates for District 1 and continue District 5 and 9, and then we'll rotate each district and candidate, and just as a reminder, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer the question. Okay? So, and we'll start with Tori Jennings. In your view, which type of developments currently underway increase the quality of life in our city? Do you have an innovative idea you would like to help make happen in our city?
I feel really privileged to be part of a council that has been advocating for infill redevelopment and multi-use development. And a number of those projects have been voted on by council, and I've been part of that. So this is a long-awaited vision that I've had. So to increase density in the urban core increases tax value substantially. It brings more people into the core area, and from that attracts business. So it's really important for our city to be focusing on the highest taxable value area, and that's infill redevelopment. When we get into the alternative, or a alternative, which is suburban sprawl, what ends up happening is the urban core ends up subsidizing that rural-urban interface. And then we are obligated to create infrastructure and roadways and then pay for that. And this undermines the wealth of our community. So I'm super excited about the projects we have going forward. These are innovative and very different than anything that we've seen before. And it's going to be very different than anything you see in the area. So I really think with things like the North Side Yard, Stevens Point is going to be in magazines, and people are going to be saying, look what this small city is doing here. And this in connection to all the great amenities we have.
Right. Thank you. Shannon Simmerlin.
Well, as somebody who works with a lot of magazine editors and writers, I would love to see us in another one. And I'm excited when I read even about the magazines produced by our business council, indicating all of the awards that we do already have as a great small city to live in. There's a number of projects that are underway right now. If I were to pick one, and when we speak of infill, I'm excited about the mix of living opportunities that are before us here for the future. One in particular that I found very interesting when we think about how people are living and working differently is the possibility of a small development project where people can live and work in their same place. That's very different than what we've seen previous here in our community, so I think that that's exciting. As we look at how people live and work differently, how families are living differently, to have those options available for development to live in is encouraging. And certainly I have not been as deeply involved in those projects that are underway now or being considered as alderperson, Tori Jennings. But I am excited from what I'm seeing and reading in the local media and from the meetings that I've attended.
Thank you. Melissa Johnson.
Thank you. It is really an exciting time for Stevens Point. I think probably a couple of years ago, if you'd asked that question, people would go, what developments? We've done a lot of things in a very short time. It is a collective leadership, and I don't think people realize it is staff, it's the mayor, it's council creating the policies, setting the framework, setting the vision for this community to move it forward while still honoring the past. I am very excited too about the Wanta project. That's the live work thing. I think it's really cool. If I was younger, that would have been totally where I would want to go. I'm not younger anymore. But I'm particularly proud of, when you talk about development, redevelopment is really important. And one of the most important things I think that council did was recognize that we have to start reinvesting back into our urban core of our existing housing stock. And we took, a number of us alders worked vigorously to get some of the money from the Whitetail subdivision, I think it was $1.2 million, I forget what it was, and set up policies, guidance for the redevelopment authority to execute some community development programs for our existing housing stock. nothing more important than taking what we've got and making it better. So I was very proud of that. We also have to look at creating more affordable housing through either tiny housing, modest starter homes, and other living options like co-ops. So let's go forward.
Great, thank you. Brian Georgella.
Well, it's been brought up a couple times already, but I'm excited of the work-live mix development. I think that's going to be great for downtown. I think that just shows forward thinking. A lot of companies are doing more telecommuting. It allows people to maybe even work two different jobs. And obviously that's, with telecommuting, you're obviously supporting a green initiative as well. So that I think is exciting, especially being close to downtown.
Great, thank you. Polly Dalton.
Well, within District 9, I'm really excited to see that there is a mixed use and mixed income development coming right here on Water Street in the old Soik property. And I think that it's great that they've been able to put together a proposal that doesn't require much from the city other than an approval. And in addition to that, I know that there's a lot of old buildings that are deteriorating around our community, and I've been excited to hear about a group of local producers that are coming together to form a cooperative in cooperation with Altenburg Dairy to basically work to repurpose and reuse that building and bring a true hub of local food production, which I think is a wonderful character of this community as it's surrounded by really bountiful agricultural lands. And I look forward to seeing how that develops and kind of the new hub that provides for the south side.
Okay, thank you. Mary McComb.
It has been an exciting time to be on council. I'm very excited about Ryan Wanta's development. 11 years ago, at my candy store might have been there. I'm very excited about Northside Yard and particularly thrilled about the affordable housing possibilities on Water Street. The senior housing is much needed in Stevens Point, and so is the workforce housing, and there is actually a pay-as-you-go incentive involved with that. I recently talked with Steph Jones, and those fashionistas will recognize this as a Steph Jones creation. She and some friends in the north side have a great idea for a business. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want anybody to take it, but I'd like to see us do more for some of the local people who have great ideas. I know we've been supporting Create Portage County. And that's a good thing. I'm particularly interested in co-op housing, having lived in co-ops during my time at UW-Madison. And I'm also interested in cottage developments, which are, well, I don't have time to explain, but I think we can be a lot more creative, and I'd like to see us continue the exciting growth that's been going on. Thanks.
Thank you. And finally, Brian Bolio.
You got it right.
I know. I've been practicing.
So, like mentioned by everybody else on this panel, the Wanta property is very exciting. Having a development like that kind of resounds back to the old days of downtown, where the business owners lived in the same building that they did business in, is pretty cool. I also like the new senior building that's proposed. There's a lot of seniors in our area, and a lot of them can either afford to live on their own in a large house, or they would just like to downsize and get a nice new modern facility to live in. Having options for people, especially our seniors, because we got a lot to learn from them, we just can't let them go, is great news. I know there's going to be a lot of what you would call, I guess, checks and balances, because they're seeking federal funding and state funding and stuff for it as well. So that property and the Wanta development on the Belkey side, I'm really excited to see. If we can see more developments like those, it would be great for our community. And it's kind of rebuilding our downtown core, which is great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you much. We will be moving on to our next question, and we will start with Brian Georgella. And here's the question. Is the city addressing and meeting its need for development of housing for people of all income levels?
Well, I haven't studied all the housing studies, but it's pretty obvious that with all the developers that are proposing high-density housing, that there's obviously, they feel there's a market for it. One market I feel that's under developed is what I've heard from some realtors is affordable new housing in the city core. Anything under 150 for new housing is almost non-existent. They have waiting lists of clients. And most people may not be able to fix up an older house on their own or don't want to move into an older house. I think we should try to focus on opening up some lots for some new single-family developments as well.
Okay, thank you. Melissa Johnson.
Thank you. The housing study, the most recent housing study that MSA did, there was a gap in the need, or what is available for affordable housing. I've been looking, I certainly know that trying to find something under 150 is like impossible. So, as I said before, what we have to start looking at is how do we create policies that allow us to look at some options as it relates to affordable housing. Granny flats, tiny houses, changing our zoning ordinances to allow more than one person who is not related to buy a home, or what would be called a co-op. So we have to start looking at these things and be creative, because home ownership is how you build community. But more importantly, home ownership is how you build individual wealth. It's the biggest decision any family will make. And so we need to look at that to create community and to build individual wealth. Right now, yes, we've got a lot of homes on the $300,000 range. We've got a lot of homes probably in that $75,000 to $120,000 range, and they do need repair. So that's where I talked about having a grant program to provide additional assistance to those folks who just are above the CAP services guidelines for some support, but not wealthy enough to do these things without some support. So I think we have some opportunity to fill that gap, and I'd love to be able to do those things.
All right, thank you. Mary McComb.
Okay. Housing, I'm pleased with what we've done with housing. The one project on Water Street is workforce housing, and the other one that I'm excited about, because I'm a senior and I might downsize, is the senior housing project. I too would like to see much more creativity. I think the limitation on the number of family members who can live together inhibits people from living together as roommates or in small cooperative settings. I'd like to see our zoning ordinances allow accessory dwellings. I recently talked with staff about this, and we are probably going to put, almost undoubtedly putting something like that into the ordinances. One of the housing study findings was that we needed more high-quality rentals as well. And this is where I think Northside Yard is going to fill a real need. I talked with somebody associated with that, and he said the rents are going to start at $750 and go up from there. So it's a stretch. It would be a stretch for me, but employers are looking for that kind of housing in Stevens Point.
Okay, thank you. Polly Dalton.
Well, I actually agree with many of the things that the other candidates here are saying. Again, we see 25% of households in the city of Stevens Point are living in poverty levels, and there is just really not the housing available for them to even begin to build that wealth, and that is really critical. A lot of that comes down to just how they're being built, and so by adjusting the square footage requirements necessary, and then the housing, and not even just simply moving it from 2 unrelated folks to 3 unrelated folks, but really seriously considering how people are living and young people are living and what they would like to live the types of housing situations they would like to live in. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Brian Bolio.
As far as meeting the needs for housing, I do see the need to build new single-family homes. A lot of them, I think if the city would take efforts to work on their zoning and ordinance regulations and building codes to put up more single-family homes in our inner core, where some of the older city lots are smaller, like 60 by 120 used to be the standard lot. That doesn't allow for a new house to be built on it in modern codes and ordinances. If it allowed it 100 years ago, it should be able to allow it now. It might not be as big of a house as what used to be, but even a 1,000 square foot house is a good moderate sized house for most people that are just entering the homeowners market. There are many people that are looking for homes. You can see by the real estate sales that once a house is on the market, it's gone, usually within a week. So I would like to see more efforts to make use of our empty lots that are in town, whether it's a zoning or an ordinance or a regulation that reduces the requirements as far as square footage goes. I do like I mentioned before, I like the live-work facilities. Maybe we could get some more of those throughout the city instead of just downtown. That would be great to see, to promote business throughout the entire city in little niche like neighborhood things. There used to be neighborhood grocery stores. That'd be kind of cool to bring back. So I guess that's how I feel about that.
All right, thank you. Shannon Simmerling.
Certainly. In terms of what we're already working on in the city, I'd also like to take a look at what the needs are of the city. If you're familiar with the LIFE report, the Portage County LIFE report that came out in 2017, that indicated that about 30% of respondents here in Portage County indicated that they're spending that much on their household expenses, on living, in their rental. That's simply too high, and it is a hardship. I will say that in terms of solutions to that, I had the great opportunity last night of speaking with and being with our Central Wisconsin Apartment Association. And throughout that discussion and in the evening, hearing and speaking about various different apartment complexes and housing arrangements that are here in our community, we spoke of the Want a Property 2 and Live Work Solutions. A really great suggestion was made, and it's a way that I'd like to approach many other things in government if elected to this role. The suggestion was made, have you ever considered a housing advisory committee? So in answer to your question, I think that we need to seek additional perspectives than just what we have here today. And perhaps one way to do that is to organize a housing advisory council that would serve and support and work with our council members. That makeup could include somebody that represents an apartment building as a landlord, a homeowner, a home builder, a renter, a homeowner, so that we get those unique perspectives coupled with the facts that we've heard for our LIFE report and marry solutions that work for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Tori Jennings.
Our community development department, which does a lot of what you're talking about, we work hand in glove with staff, and we have incredible staff in the city. I think we're really fortunate, and I think all the alders would echo that. The greater diversity that we're creating in the housing that this council has approved, the 6 different projects, that greater diversity is going to open up other opportunities for the existing housing we have. And one thing that I'm interested in and have been pushing for are various grant programs to help, for example, convert rentals back to single-family homes. So the issue is not that we don't have enough single-family homes. The issue is they're occupied by students. And if we're providing more quality housing, meaning safe housing, clean housing that students can move into and afford, then we open up other opportunities in the city. So I think the big thing is diversity, and we're definitely working on that and having the kind of support systems to help people. And real quick, yesterday a person in the 1st District showed me some appalling pictures of where her daughter lives. She's a single mom with 3 kids living in a place with mold and peeling paint, and she's afraid to confront the landlord and because of what will happen. And so we have a lot of people, she's paying $600 a month. she should be able to live in a better place than that.
Thank you. Moving on to our third question, and we will start with Melissa Johnson. Yay. Okay. What are the ways that the City Council can encourage an increase in jobs that pay more than the minimum wage in our city? Are there efforts to encourage employers to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour, which you support?
Well, let's start with, yes, I support increasing the minimum wage to a living wage. I raised my kids in poverty, living on a minimum wage. And you don't live on a minimum wage, you go into debt on a minimum wage. And that debt follows you for decades. What can we do? We should start with the city. We just recently increased the seasonal wage for our seasonal employees because we recognize that they're valuable and we need to pay them more money. I'm working on something right now in the streets department. The streets employees, a truck driver would have to spend 2 hours on an excavator in order to get paid at that higher rate. So if he spends an hour and 20 minutes, he's only going to be paid as a truck driver, not as an equipment operator with advanced skills. We need to correct those sort of things and set the trend. We need to be the leaders. We need to show this community that we support a living wage by honoring the people who work for us with a wage commensurate with what they're doing. The other thing I would like to see us do, though some of those things we're a little bit hamstringed by the legislature, but we can fight against them, is to, as we look at developments bringing in businesses, put a standard. Say, we want the wages at a minimum of the employees working here to be $15 an hour. I don't think that's a lot to ask. So.
Right, thank you. Brian Giorgella.
Well, I wouldn't be in favor of forcing somebody to raise to a $15 minimum. I think you're going to let the market bear that out. Certain jobs are meant to be entry-level jobs, and they're not made to hold that. You're going to see that. It's been done in cities before. They were just replacing part-time workers then if they're forced to do that. So I'm not going to force a business to do that. However, we do need to attract the industries that are paying a more than livable wage. We have a huge East Side business park that has lots of room, and I don't know what, I'm not privy to exactly what we're doing, but we need to get creative. This isn't the 80s anymore. We don't have Woodward Governor and paper mills humming around here. We got to be forward-looking and try to attract some of those new businesses, increase the tax base.
Okay, thank you. Brian Bolio.
So I don't feel that we need to try to force companies to pay a minimum wage, as that's an entry-level job pay, mainly geared toward high school and college students that are working as they're living here and going to school. What I do feel is that we need to try to attract more manufacturing facilities. We lost several of them in the past 20 years, and we've turned away a couple that were intrigued to be here. If we were to attract more manufacturers, I work at the paper mill just across the street, and I will say that I make about $25 an hour, and I only have 2 years of paper mill experience. That's their hiring pay. So if we attract more manufacturers that are willing to pay that kind of a wage with minimum experience, I think we can diversify our job market instead of just focusing on IT and entry-level jobs. If you want a diversified population of citizens, you need a diversified job market. So granted, raising the pay on our current city employees is good, because some of them have been underpaid for years. Raising the pay for seasonal workers is probably a good thing as well, because that attracts more summer help to lighten the load for everybody. But saying that we need to institute a $15 an hour minimum wage across the board might turn away developers and business owners.
All right, thank you. Polly Dalton.
Well, I would love everyone to be paying a minimum wage. I am not supportive of mandating it for businesses, and what I think can be done instead is to encourage small businesses to develop and that have local ownership, and not just local ownership, but rather all the employees are owners of the business. And so we see a lot of businesses, as maybe the current owners are retiring, transitioning to worker ownership and or worker-owned co-ops. And I think that's definitely a direction that we can see businesses as they're changing hands and transitioning turnover to. And there you have the power in the hands of the employees themselves as to what they would like their wages to be, what fits their living. Maybe they want healthcare benefits instead and a $12 wage, and that seems to work just as well for them. And so I think that is a much better direction and provides a much more uplifting and engaging workforce when people feel like they have ownership of the places they're working for.
Thank you. Mary McComb.
I've been head of the Personnel Committee for a year now, and as such, I've been in lots and lots of meetings with department heads and other employees about the city's issues with not only hiring, but also keeping our employees, because our wages just aren't matching other equal municipalities' wages. So I agree with Melissa. We really do need to start with city employees. Besides the issue Melissa mentioned, in general, the streets department employees are not paid for the level of skill that they use in their jobs. They're not driving big old just dump trucks to pick up trash anymore, where some guy is pitching the can in the back of the truck. If you watch those trucks, they're very, very complicated, and they're driving truck and they're doing all sorts of things. It's complicated. It's complicated equipment, and so we have been working for about a year, and actually Melissa's been on it longer, with trying to get our city employees paid what they deserve, and I think that'll serve as a role model. And I would also like us to use our development agreements to invite or encourage good wages from companies who are thinking about coming to Stevens Point.
Thank you. Tori Jennings.
The forces of the global market is what has affected manufacturing, and so those jobs will not be coming back because we can't control that because it's part of the global market. Really great comments have already been made, and I don't feel like I have much to add other than the way the economy works today, which is different than in the past. People want to live in great communities, and businesses are interested in going to those great communities because those great communities have the workforce that they're interested in. So it's no longer the day when business is set up and everyone moves to where that business is. It's the other way around. So one thing we're doing and can continue doing is making Stevens Point an even better place to live, drawing people into this, and having that diverse population brings with it a diverse interest in terms of businesses and a range of pay with that. And I agree with what others have said, the city being a model, and I was also in support of increasing those wages. So I don't think I have, great comments have been made, and I don't think I have anything else to add.
All right. Shannon Summer.
Thank you. I feel like mine perhaps might be the shortest response of all, echoing the last few comments. I would agree. First and foremost, I'm encouraged to hear what's happening at the city level. If elected, I recognize that is the influence that that is the change I would be able to influence first and foremost. So if we can have some positive impact on the wages and have living wages for those city employees, awesome. Let's figure that out. I also am not a proponent of enforcing how employers, private businesses choose to pay or incentivize their employees. I don't think that would be the role of a city council person. So,
Thank you. I've been asked to ask our speakers to speak a bit louder or move closer to the mic.
I don't think I've ever been asked that before.
Yeah, me either. Usually they're telling me to shut up.
Okay.
Can you move these closer, or is that?
Don't touch the mics, because otherwise our audio guy is going to probably jump through a window and, yeah. So don't touch the mics. They're usually pretty sensitive. Now I sound like John. They're very sensitive. Just speak clearly and distinctly and project, and we'll all be fine.
That's right. All right, we'll start with the next question, with Polly Dalton. And Stevens Point has elected to be a green tier legacy community. What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? Well, I know that it comes with a lot of standards, and I know that there's just a great report that Mary put on the last meeting about where they've been so far, and I think that that's really a first step and a springboard now that there has been some baseline data collecting. But I think what we really need to look at as we look into the future is every time that the city is looking at its facilities or its fleets and investments that it's choosing to make, that it's considering how can it best use its financial resources as an investment for 40, 50, 60 years, maybe even 100 years down the road. They used to build city halls like that. And so I think that that's something that we need to be considering, and that definitely includes renewable energy. So as we transition facilities and update them, that needs to be included. And down to our fleet as buses become available. And I know electric vehicles, the technology is really updating so that it makes sense. And even down to things like the fluids the hydraulic fluids that they're using, the Forest Service has been able to transition to more sustainable and biodegradable ones, and I think that that's something that here at the city we can do as well.
Thank you. Mary McComb.
Green tier legacy community. Alder Shore and I have to give credit to Alder Shore for discovering the DNR's Green Tier Legacy Community Program. And we decided as a council and as a city to convert from the eco-municipality framework to the green tier framework because it's much more systematic, and it's working with the DNR, it's working with other green tier legacy communities around the state. So we have resources, both peer resources and expert resources to help us. So for me, it means the fun every year of going around and talking to city workers and saying, okay, here's where we were last year. What have you done this year to increase our sustainability? And I'm always very, very amazed because they're doing it. And what Alder Shore and I are doing is collecting the information in a central point. And the thing we're talking about for this year is to track our fossil fuel usage, which ain't going to be as simple as I originally thought it was. There's a lot of factors, but so that's what it means to me. It's a great program to work with.
Thank you. Brian Bolio.
So the Green Tier legacy, I know Mary was very influential on that, but to me it's our city's environmental impact, or its environmental footprint. Obviously the planet is going to be here long after we're gone. So if we can make efforts to reduce our carbon footprint and our environmental impact on our city, our beautiful parks, the city, the state, even the globe as a whole, is great. Whether it's applying renewable energy sources to new properties such as solar or wind, or converting our police force fleets to LP gas, which is way cleaner and usually cheaper than gasoline, and maybe looking into like a biofuel diesel for our diesel trucks would be even better because they're a lot less soot producing. To say that we can get rid of fossil fuels entirely, I don't know if we can, but it would be a step in the right direction. As someone who owns collector cars, I still need petroleum to run my old cars, so. But if we can reduce or make efforts to reduce our environmental impact toward this green tier legacy, it would be beneficial to not only our citizens, but possibly attract new businesses. So
Thank you. Shannon Simmerling.
So as I understand the Green Tier, it's like any accreditation program, only more robust. And at its core, it's about setting a standard and a commitment and honoring that commitment for more than us, for the generation here and the generation in the future. And that's exciting. And I had an opportunity to hear the presentation also that was given at the last Common Council meeting. And I'm encouraged by the progress that's being made here at the city. And I'm happy to see that we have a path forward for additional work. Directing dollars where need be for more responsible solar projects, wherever we can to make green, smart decisions, I think is just good business, and it's good for the environment, it's good for us today, and it's good for the future. It's also an accountability program, as I understand it, which I believe also bodes well when we're selling our community to other potential developers, people that want to move to this community. To say that we're a Green Tier community is a good thing. So I'm encouraged by this, and I think that it's a good program. I'm glad to see we're making progress.
Thank you. Tori Jennings.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment to thank Mary McComb and David Shore for all the work that you put into this. How can we make the city, how can we make better choices to save energy? How can we reduce our carbon footprint? But what hasn't been said yet, and I'm glad, is how to improve health and well-being of our citizens. And that's also a part of the Green Tier. So a bikeable, walkable community is improving health and well-being as well as reducing our carbon footprint and changing the way the city is designed and how the city moves around. And through that, creating a different kind of community. And that creates a place that people want to live. So all of these things work together. I also appreciate as an anthropologist, I appreciate the holistic approach of this kind of initiative and how it requires looking at all facets of the city and how do they work together and how do we make them work better together.
Thank you. Brian Georgella.
I think Green Tier Legacy is great. And I also think as a community, we shouldn't need some kind of program to push us forward and be at the forefront of this stuff. Renewable, starting as a city, renewable energy is probably the way we need to look into any way possible. As was said before, when we start updating facilities, we need to learn how to build this stuff in and be forward-looking. And, I'm sure looking into something like as simple as solar-powered chargers for electric vehicles downtown to encourage that stuff is great. And, just like they took steps to go from incandescent bulbs to fluorescent to LED, we need to make incremental changes as well. And as long as they're cost-effective, in the long run, it's probably going to save us, both in money and the environment.
And Melissa Johnson.
I love Green Tier Legacy community because as a planner, my degree is environmental policy and planning, so this hits everything that I learned in college, is developing good plans and working to protect the environment. But good plans are only as good as setting outcomes for them, otherwise they get put on the shelf and everybody forgets about them. Green Tier Legacy sets out a plan that is executable. It has achievable goals. It has benchmarks. You check them off. So you feel like you're doing something. When you have a plan and you don't visit it back and see how you're doing on it, you sort of forget about it. I get the honor of working in my daytime job as solid waste director for Marathon County with the Village of Weston, who is a Green Tier Legacy community, and I've actually been a guest speaker at many Green Tier events talking about waste reduction and talking about recycling more, talking about composting. The Rising Sands project, which I had a great part in doing, and I love, not that I was important in it, but it was just such an honor to work with the students to help create that project of collecting compost at the curb, working with a private group, the co-op, to build nutrient-rich compost right here. All of these things are a part of the Green Tier Legacy community that we can check off. It is about building a great community that is focused on not only our environmental footprint, but the health of the community. The other thing I want to say is, remember water. And I'll leave it at that because she just put the red card up. Put it back down. I have more to say about water.
All right, thank you. We're going to our last question, and we'll be starting with Tori Jennings. Public transportation is essential for so many of our working people of all ages. What initiatives do you think would increase accessibility and frequency of use of bus and bike transportation?
Oh, I love this question. Well, I was the co-author of the TAP grant, which is the almost $400,000 grant that will be bringing over 13 miles of bike facilities to Stevens Point in 2020. So obviously I'm very passionate about diverse transportation for all people. I've also been talking with various staff. I really would like to see a dedicated bus route on Division Street that goes from Plover to Century. And it would have a prime traffic time as well, so early in the morning and late in the evening during rush hour. And it's just a dedicated route, and that's all it does is go up and down Division Street. And this would encourage or discourage people from driving or give people driving from Plover to downtown another option. It also gives lots of people who depend on the bus much greater access to the kinds of shopping areas that they need access to. A lot of places on Division Street. So I think working on our bus routes, and then another thing I want to see as we change housing, we need to also be creating satellite parking and shuttles so that we can get people around without cars and get people to the major employers without them having to drive there. So there's so many opportunities we have, and I'm really excited about us working on better transportation for all road users.
Thank you. Shannon Smelling.
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Public transportation is essential for so many of our working people of all ages. What initiatives do you think would increase accessibility and frequency of use of bus and bike transportation?
I clearly have not given this as much thought as Alderperson Jennings, and I appreciate the suggestions that you've made. What I would state is that public transportation is essential. I don't have any initiatives right now that I can speak to that would improve it, but I think it's very important for any changes that we would make or initiatives that we would suggest that we get the viewpoints of many different users, individuals who could benefit from new initiatives like this, because perhaps there's something that I myself am not even thinking of at this time. So before making any disinformed decision or recommendation, I'd actually like to consider and have greater conversations with individuals who need and use or could benefit from our transportation systems.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful that we have one here.
All right, thank you. Melissa Johnson.
Thank you. I'm still waiting for the commuter rail line from central Wisconsin to Madison so that I don't have to drive down there 4 or 5 times a month. I would love to sit back and do some reading and just kick back and all of a sudden be in Madison. But in all seriousness, the other thing we need to look at for public transportation is to provide transportation when people need it. So it's not only that commuter line going from Plover to the north all the way up to Spash or Century, but also what about folks who are working second and third shift? A lot of those folks may not have good transportation or have one vehicle, and now they've got to try to figure out how to shuttle that around. We have to meet the needs of people. So what about getting more transit available or lines out to the Walmart area? Crossroads, I couldn't think of the name of it. So you have to figure out what the need is. And I think there are far too many people who would probably ride if it had greater availability. Here's the other thing. I was talking with some students and they said, well, how do we get students to ride more? And I said, well, many of them probably aren't aware of it or think it's kind of not cool. So we've got to figure out a media campaign that makes it cool, but also to outline why they should be using it. I've got some ideas on how you can make it cool, but I'm not going to say anything at this point. But I think the other thing is creating a community that allows for multiple types of transportation. I have a lot of constituents who ride bike. We need to figure out how to serve that need as well, safely.
Thank you. Brian Georgella?
I don't have an initiative of my own, but the suggestion of the dedicated route along Division Street is great. But on that end too, some of these businesses that have hundreds or more employees, is the city, how can we encourage them maybe to set up more ride shares? And then, like was mentioned before, once we transition housing and stuff like that, we do need to make places available where they can do that, park and ride or other things, so they can utilize alternative forms of transportation.
Thank you. Mary McComb.
I was on Transportation Committee for a year, and it's sort of a chicken and egg situation. You want more passengers, but to get more passengers, you need a quicker schedule. To get a quicker schedule, you need more passenger demand. So I remember thinking about that and talking about that then. I love public transportation, and Tori and I have talked about the Division Street idea. I would add the Main Street corridor too, all the way from the west side. Let's go across the bridge to the west side, all the way down to the Fleet Farm area, and maybe further now. Costs money, but a regular dedicated line, and Melissa's right, it would have to be 24/7. I think would get more people excited about public transportation. We've got a ways to go there.
Thank you. Brian Bolio.
So I don't really have a lot of input on this, but after going around speaking with the residents of District 9, there's a large senior group of residents, including the ones at Edgewater, but just on the west side and south of railroad tracks. If our public transportation catered more towards seniors and their needs, especially now with Shopko closing, they lost a place to get their necessities, and you can only take so much on a bus at a time. If they had dedicated routes that said, okay, we'll take 10 passengers on the hour so you can get all your things you need, that would probably help out greatly for our seniors. And as far as catering toward everybody in the community, I think our city does a fairly decent job at it, but there is need for improvement. A dedicated route might be needed on the busy roads to reduce traffic on the busy roads. I mean, we have school buses to take our kids to school, we just don't let them go free frolicking down the roads, so, that would help with the safety aspect of it, the dedicated routes for sure, so.
Thank you. And Polly Dalton.
Well, one of the first things that I really like to focus on, because we're District 9's really in the interior, is working with the young people and really moving forward with safe routes to school. I know that these are the future users of multimodal transportation, and honestly, a lot of students, well, I see a few walking to school and biking, but that used to be much more the norm, and it's almost sad when I go to Ben Franklin and there's just a continuous line of cars and there's very few young people trying to find other ways, and they might enjoy it, and it's also just a lifelong experience, whether they stay here in Stevens Point or move out into the greater world. There's a lot of other transportation opportunities, and it's a good learning experience as how to move about your city. The second thing would really, as trivial as it sounds, but it's also probably a winner for bicyclists and car folks alike, filling in potholes and being, as a winter cyclist, it's rather dangerous. And it's one of those things that when you don't feel safe because you have to move out into a lane as a cyclist, that prevents a lot of people from even considering it as an option. As well, the technology is out there and it's rather cheap and not, cost effective to implement, but GPS in your buses so that folks know when they can expect the bus to be coming if they want to use it, and that will help encourage it, and it's a rather simple thing, and everyone's got a smartphone, so you can really figure out when the bus is coming.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. We now will move into our closing statements. The closing statement is an opportunity for the candidates to comment on topics that were not covered in the questions. And again, their order will be drawn, and they will have 1 minute for their closing statements. Mary McComb.
Okay. this is why I brought this. This was one of my first campaign pieces in 2015, and my platform has been the same for the entire 4 years I've been on city council. And what's been great is that I've had the chance to collaborate with council members, with our incredible city staff, and our residents to achieve many things that I've always thought that our city needs to achieve. We've got some attractive mixed-use housing coming up. We've been doing things with ordinances to make our neighborhoods even better. We're doing the Green Tier Legacy Project. We're moving toward transportation justice. So I'm proud of maintaining what I promised to do in 2015 as your dedicated, principled, and proven candidate for District 9 Alder. Thank you very much, and thanks to the League.
Thank you. Ryan Gergella.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear here from tonight. I think the current alderpersons and the candidates all want the exact same thing for Stevens Point, and that is to keep it moving forward and to make it the best community we can. This being my first go into the public sector like this, it's been interesting tonight, but I'm interested in the next few weeks to meet once the floodwaters reside, walk around the neighborhoods and knock on some doors and meet people, and I'm interested in hearing what the public's thoughts are, and my constituents, and my door will always be open, and yeah, I think that's it. I think we all, in the long run, want the same thing for Stevens Point.
Melissa Johnson.
Well, this was fun, and it's great to see so many people here. We used to have this many people coming to the healthcare center meetings, and Carlene was at all of them, Mary Ann was at all of them. I love great engagement, and I love hearing ideas. One of the best parts about being an alderperson or a county board supervisor is finding out how much I don't know and how much I need to learn, and taking all of that and making decisions for the future. That's why I love my staff. They remind me every day that I'm not the smartest person in the world, and they remind me how smart they are. It's an honor to work with staff. Corey's here. They are amazing. I love District 5. I moved into it 7 years ago. I've met so many people. I've heard them. I've listened to them, and I've served them, and I hope to do that on April 2nd by their vote. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Tori Jennings.
I believe the most sustainable path forward for our city is to take advantage of its compact urban footprint, improve transportation options for all people, make neighborhoods safe for children and older adults alike, and support our valuable amenities, including parks, the Green Circle Trail, historic districts, and schools. A healthy city is one that can adapt with change and address the needs of many different people. This is a vision I have for Stevens Point, and the kinds of developments, policies, and projects I have supported and created, including Cycling Without Age, a free program that gets older adults and adults with limited mobility out in the fresh air in a social environment. I have been working hard for our city, our local businesses, and District 1 before I won the 2017 election. And I want to continue that work, which has strengthened our economy and is making Stevens Point an even better place to live. I'm grateful for the endorsements I have received from strong Republicans and Democrats alike, as well as the Portage County Labor Council and Wisconsin Progress. And I want to thank all of you and the League for this event. Thank you all.
Thank you. Brian Bolio.
So, my primary goal, if elected, would be to fairly represent everybody that lives within District 9 and the city of Stevens Point. There's a lot of voices that haven't been heard. That is the main complaint, that's saying they're forgotten about. Well, we can't forget about the people that live here. Without the people, we have no city. To be able to include everybody to make decisions that are based on what they want is vital. on that note, you may not agree with what they want, but you have to vote with what they want. It's not your decision to interpret what they want, or your purpose to interpret what they want. So just to take it back to the basics and be a representative that actually represents people, that would be my one goal if elected. Obviously, making the city better and making it better together is the biggest thing we can do. So, and the red card's here, I guess.
Thank you. Shannon Simmerling.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to learn, to hear what's concerning to you, to hear ideas from those here at the table with me. I intentionally moved back to this community, graduated from UWSP, moved away and moved back, and I never looked back. We've been here for 20 years. We've dug roots in and have made a difference in a number of different organizations, employers that I've worked with, neighbors that I've met, and friends that I hold dear. And I look forward to listening more, to learning more, and to sharing what I learned so that together we can continue to make this the kind of place that we want to live in and are proud to call home, and that others want to move to and want to come here and hang out too. So thank you so much for the opportunity, League of Women Voters, and to all of you watching at home for the time that you've taken to listen tonight. And I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. And Polly Dalton.
Thank you again for coming out tonight. I'm running for this position because I think that our city leadership needs to be held to a high standard. And this involves talking to all of our neighbors, not just in an election year and not just the ones that I'm friends with or not just on Facebook, but all the ones that I disagree with. And I think it's even most important to keep those close at heart so that when I have a proposal or I have an idea that I know exactly who I can go to for a differing perspective. And another standard that we need for our leaders is that we're not just picking and choosing policies, but rather taking in these perspectives that we have and working to actively refine the ordinances that we have. Sometimes that means getting rid of the ordinance language and encouraging discretion from our city staff so that it benefits all of our residents and not just the city as an organization, because the city itself is really made up of the people. And I would like to, residents that I've talked with really want to know what's going on and want to participate. And so I think we should provide them the platform and the information necessary to do so. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to all the candidates for the time and energy they have invested in running for their district positions on the City Council and for participating in this forum. Feel free to stay and talk with constituents in the hallway at the conclusion of the forum. And I say in the hallway because at 7 o'clock we have another forum in here for the school board candidates. Be sure to stop at the candidates table if you are interested in the candidates' literature. As it's been mentioned, on April 2nd, voters will also be voting for a Wisconsin Supreme Court justice. A candidate guide with questions answered by the two candidates, Brian Hagedorn and Lisa Neubauer, is available on the vote411.com website. For other information about the April elections and voting may be accessed at the League website. League contact information, including our state website, email, and mailing address is available at the League table. And as I said earlier, there's also a Stevens Point Area School District election on April 2nd, and we'll be hearing from those candidates shortly. That concludes the forum for the Stevens Point Common Council Alderpersons. Thank you, candidates and audience, for your participation and attention. We also wish to thank John Quirk and our videographer, Sarah Thoreau, who tape and replay the forums on Community TV Channel 984. The times for these broadcasts will be available next week, and we will be posting them on social media and other sources. These broadcasts are an appreciated service to the Portage County area citizens. Thank you to the League of Women Voter members who volunteered in various roles tonight, who made the forum possible. We couldn't do it without you. And thank you to Portage County for their assistance in allowing us to use this facility for the forum. The League believes that when you vote, you are participating in one of the most basic and important responsibilities you have as a citizen. When you vote, you are empowering your political voice. Please remember to vote on April 2nd. And again, let us show our appreciation again to all our candidates. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. So, forum number 2 for this evening, obviously. Hello and welcome to this forum for the Stevens Point Public School District School Board candidates. My name is Lynn Markham. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area, and I'm happy to be the moderator for this forum. A little bit about the school district. Our school district covers 450 square miles. It has 18 4K community sites, 9 elementary schools, 2 junior high schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school, 1 alternative high school, and the Boston School Forest. It has an annual budget of $117 million. School board members are paid $3,600 per year. The school board is composed of 9 members who serve 3 3-year terms. Who serve 3-year terms. For the April 2nd election, there are 7 candidates running for 3 open seats. Each voter can vote for up to 3 candidates. The candidates in alphabetical order are Jeffrey, is it Abel? You can tell me what's right, then I won't mispronounce it. Ebel, okay, Jeffrey Ebel. G. Pope, Barb Portson, Kurt Pulvermacher, Jody Renfro, and Ann Vang. For this forum, 3 candidates are present, and 3 cannot attend. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and to provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to this community, we have established and reviewed the format, time, and terms for this forum with the candidates. They received that information ahead of time. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. At the end, we'll have 1-minute closing statements by each candidate. The order of speaking will be rotated for each question. I will repeat the question as requested. The timers are located in front of the candidate tables. A green card will be held up when their time starts. A yellow card indicates 30 seconds remain, and the red card means the time has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence, then please stop, and the next candidate may begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the questions and fair to the participants. The moderator reserves the right to interrupt to ensure that these ground rules are observed. Candidates will respond first to questions submitted by the league and then questions from the audience. If you want to submit questions to the candidates, please motion to one of the ushers for index cards and pencils. The league reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and to avoid duplication. After the forum, you are invited to meet with the candidates as well. The order for responding to questions has been selected earlier and will be rotated for each question. The order will start for the first question as Ebel, Pope, and Vang. We now begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. And for that, I get to choose from my cup. The first candidate to do the 2-minute opening statement will be Jeffrey Ebel.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event, and thank you to all the concerned citizens that are here tonight. I am a native of Stevens Point, born and raised here. I raised my family here, went to school here. I started a business here, and I ran my business for a number of years. I ran a successful business. I sold it in 2007, and I've been doing a lot of volunteer work in the community. I've been involved in leadership training. I'm a graduate of the Portage County Leadership Program. I'm a graduate of Wisconsin Leadership Program. And I'm also a member of the Stevens Point Toastmasters Club, where we practice communication and leadership skills. I am a volunteer for SCORE, so I help small businesses get started. I help them to be successful. About 4 years ago, I joined with another gentleman from Stevens Point here who we're involved with business consulting. We help businesses get funded through angel investing. I also teach an entrepreneurship class here as an adjunct at the university. I've been doing that for about 13 years, and I help, again, people that want to start a business, help them develop their business plan, develop their concepts, and get funded and build their business here, and again, help build the community. I've been on the school board now for 6 years. I'm just finishing up my second term. It was challenging, first term, but it was also very rewarding. We've come a long way in the 6 years since I've been on the board. We've made some wonderful progress in the last 3 years with a new superintendent. We have a number of new board members. I, by the way, am the second most senior person on the board, so it is a fairly new board. We embarked on the strategic planning. Strategic planning has given us direction, has really helped us focus our efforts at the school district.
For the second opening statement, we have Ann Bang.
Thank you. So my name is Ann Vang. I am a lifelong resident of Stevens Point. I've lived here for over 30 years. I've got 6 children, and 5 of them are currently in the school district. I'm really here tonight. I kind of had an inkling about, maybe I want to do a little bit more for our community and for the folks whose voices aren't heard. Last year, in Washington, D.C., I attended the CRAC, or Southeast Asian Resource Center, LOT, or Leadership Advocate Training. And there I was actually in the education cohort. I spoke to a lot of the educators, some were educators, teachers, counselors, principals of schools from all over the states. And they really spoke to me, and a lot of the common things was we don't have enough resources, or we don't have enough staff. What can we do to improve? Then I kind of got into it, like, hey, maybe I do kind of want to do the school board thing. And then I started working more closely with the youth. I started talking to the families here, having real conversations with them, like, what do you want to see your kids learn in school? What do you want to see from our school system? And I really went from there. I really got a lot of push from the students and their stories of what they go through and what they want to learn, and why are some programs being cut, why are some subjects no longer being taught at the school levels. And so that's me. I stuttered quite a bit because I'm new at this public speaking, so don't mind me. I kind of get a block in my eyes sometimes. You're like, oh my God, where do I want to go with this? So thank you for hosting tonight.
And then there's Chief Pope.
You're the one who took it. Stole my microphone. Thank you for inviting me. I've been a resident of Stevens Point for 35 years now. I have 3 sons that all went through this school district. I've taught for 30 years, 20 of them at SPASH, and I was a wrestling coach for 20 years. I'm currently, I retired in 2010 from the school district, and I taught for 6 years at UWSP. I taught freshman chemistry. And currently, I am a student teacher supervisor for UWSP. I've been doing that, I'd say since I retired, for about 8-9 years now. I'm running because, similar to Jeff, I thought it was about time I started giving back to my community. So I do Habitat for Humanity. I help out with Meals on Wheels, do some Special Olympics, things like that. And I thought that, I'm looking for things that I might have a little expertise in, and education is one of them. I spent my career in education. And after the last referendum passed, I started to take a little more interest and started looking at things and saying that, well, maybe I could help out a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so like I said earlier, for each question, each candidate will get 1.5 minutes. And we're going to start at this end of the table for the first question, and we'll rotate down one person for each question. The first question is, as a school board member, do you see yourself primarily as a representative of the community or as a representative of the school system?
Thank you. Good question. I can be both. I am both, actually. But primarily, I am selected by this community. I serve at the pleasure of this community. I've served for, like I said, 6 years. And I do represent the community and make sure that the school district is what this community envisions it to be. And, you know, me saying that is one thing, but being able to articulate that and actually put that into a document that everyone can look at and they can read and they can buy into is a completely different story. And that's where the strategic planning comes in. And it's not a simple process, it's not a painless process. 2.5 years, is it almost coming on 3 years now, we set out to do that planning process so that we had a unified vision of what this district should be, could be. And again, it was done in conjunction with the school district, with the members of the community, the business members, and the members of the school district, the associates and the teachers and the administration and the staff. So both, really.
Okay.
Okay. As far as being a member of the community or the school board, you know, if I were to be elected to the school board, I would like to think that I bring some knowledge to the board that people in the district may not have, you know, seeing as that I've been in the classroom. I know what happens in the classroom. I'm still in the classroom. I came from kindergarten class just this morning at Plover Whiting. It was wonderful. But I do realize that if we're going to be policymakers in a school district and essentially have to levy taxes, things like that, that comes from the people I see every day. If I'm out delivering meals, things like that, I look at people and I say, you know, I'm gonna have to ask you to pay for our school system. So why is it important that you do that? As a community, I think we all want our schools to be excellent. We want our graduates to come out and be productive citizens. And as a community, we've taken on that trust. So that's how I feel as a school board member, that you have to gain some kind of trust from the public.
Anne?
Thank you. So I believe that I am actually a representative of the community, as the board members are elected by the people. We are the voices that are speaking for them. They have concerns, they're able to address it so that we can bring that voice onto the board, into our school districts. Who are we as a board member to make decisions without speaking first to our community members and asking them, what do you want? How can we get there? We, as a board member, we should not be like, hey, this is our goal, this is what we need to do, this is what we want to do, and this is what we're going to do. We need to actually be the team with the community and say, this is where we start. What are the steps we need to take before we achieve this goal that we're looking for?
All right. So for the second question, we'll begin with G. Pope and continue down the table. The question is, this year, the Stevens Point District will pay almost $840,000 for vouchers for students attending Stevens Point private religious schools. How do you feel about the use of taxpayer dollars to pay for private religious education?
Well, I'm against it first. I'll get that out there right away. To me, if I could make an analogy, it's like saying, and this is where I think vouchers came from, it's like, say I sell cars, and somebody comes to me and they want to buy a car, and I tell you, well, my cars aren't any good. Here's $20,000, go down the road, his cars are better. Well, if I'm saying my education system isn't any good, then fix it, and you need money to fix it. You know, I'm sorry to say, you know, school systems don't run on anything, they run on money. That's the fact, and we as a community have to be ready to make our school systems good by making sure they have enough money to run on. And just giving the money away to go someplace else doesn't make sense, because you need it in your own school system.
Okay. Ann?
So I know that right now the vouchers it's mainly affecting the largest cities in the state of Wisconsin. It has not hit so much in Stevens Point. However, if it is a move that folks are looking to get into, I don't agree with it, as it is funding that is taken away from our public school systems. We really need to invest in our teachers and our students and what we're doing in the school system here. I know a little bit about the voucher program, not too much, but that's something that I would like to, get more information on and to see if that's a fit here. But from what I've read so far, I really don't like the voucher programs for our school districts.
Okay. Jeffrey?
I am against a voucher program. I think it drains money from the school districts, the much-needed money from the school districts. And they're not held accountable. They're not held to the same standards that the public schools are. There's accountability here with the public funds. We have to meet those standards, and yet there are other schools that don't have to meet those that still get funding. I think that parochial education is a choice. Interestingly enough, I'm a graduate of Pacelli, and yet I strongly believe that if you want to go to Pacelli, you should be able to go to Pacelli. If you want to go to the public school, you should be able to go to the public school. And I think that there are completely different funding sources. They should be funded separately. And if, again, if the parochial schools want to live by the rules of the public schools, that might be a different issue. But at this stage, at this point, I'm against vouchers.
Okay. The third question is, in your opinion, what are the best approaches the district can take to ensure the safest environment possible for all students? And with this question, we'll start with Ann.
Thank you. So I think the best approach to ensure safest environments, especially at the schools, is really focusing on mental health. We really need to figure out, we really need to have the resources for our students to go to whenever they need the assistance. Again, I said this before, but I spoke with the youth, and they have indicated that at SPASH, they are encouraged to go see someone about their mental health, or if they're not feeling well, if they just want to talk. However, they don't know where the office is located. So for the school to be saying, yes, we have help, you can come to us for help, but they don't know the location. Really, as a parent, to me, it's like, are you trying to really help my child, or are you not? I, for one, do not believe in cops in school or resource officers in school. I was reading up on some of the school shootings that occurred, and a lot of the articles stated there was a resource officer on school, on premises, but that did not stop the shooting. Many of the shootings occur because of mental health. So really, we have to dig deeper and say, hey, what is going on here? Why is our school not feeling safe, or why are our students not feeling safe? And we really need to base the safety on our students. And I know with an incident before, I questioned it. Is my child's safety at question here, or is it the safety of our staff after the feedback from the community?
Okay, Jeffrey?
Could you run the question back?
Certainly, I can read
Thanks.
that again. In your opinion, what are the best approaches the district can take to ensure the safest environment possible for all students?
Okay, thank you. There is no silver bullet. There is no one fix for the security challenges at our public schools. And I can say that our school district is addressing those on multiple fronts. First, the physical security of a building, making sure that our buildings are secure, that there is one entry point where they can monitor who's coming and who's going. They can improve communication, so in the event of any type of situation, they can respond quickly and effectively. They can communicate with the law enforcement or whoever else has to intervene. And I do agree with Ann that there is a serious mental health issue, not only in our communities, but in our schools, and it's a growing concern that we need to be able to address that. So again, I say there's not one fix, there's multiple ways that we have to address this problem.
Okay, I go in and out of schools all the time. Like I said, I was at Plover Whiting this morning, watching a student teacher. I'll be at 3 different schools tomorrow, watching the student teachers. So I have a good basis for comparison. I've been at schools you could walk right in, nobody stopped me. I've been in other schools where I walked into a little box. Both doors were locked, and the secretary looked me up and down, asked me a couple questions, then let me in. Pretty good security system. So I'd say, from the view of getting into schools, you know, we do all we can. And certainly at Stevens Point, we've done all we can. The secretaries asked, oh, okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
You might want to get a little closer. The wrong mic.
Hello?
It's the wrong mic, you gotta use the end. You'll have to move the end a little
Can I
bit.
use that?
That mic's from my camera.
Okay. That's not part of my time, is it?
You have to talk to the timers.
No, as I said, I go in and out of schools all the time, and some are really easy to go into, and I asked the secretary, what's going on? Well, school board didn't want to pay for stuff. So I think the most important barrier we have again in school safety is our people. We have people behind the scenes, school psychs, counselors, teachers, custodians, cooks, all working together to, number one, identify possible problems. You know, I taught at SPASH for 20 years. We did it all the time. If you're walking around, you have students in your class, or you see people in the lunchroom, they're never with anybody, they eat lunch all by themselves all the time. Then you tell somebody, and they start talking to them, they find out what's going on. So I think our people, our well-trained people, are really doing the job at making our schools safe. We can't dismiss physical safety because, you know, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be doing our job. And also, I remember sitting in the office with Jim Mansavage. He was our security officer. He's watching the hallways to see if there's any bullying going on. I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to questions from the audience. The first question is, do you regularly attend or view online the school board meetings? If you do, how long have you been doing so? And this will first be answered by Jeffrey.
No, actually, I don't watch the videos. I get a front row seat on that. And then we have all the minutes from the meetings that we review. So I'm fortunate in that regard that I have such a great front row seat for all the meetings. And I think in there have been a couple of times where I had to go back and understand really what was said and what had happened, you know, in the early years. But I think the way we conduct our meetings now, the way the board is structured, the board members have been doing an outstanding job, and it's really been a pleasure to sit on the board with the current board members. So, no, I don't watch the videos.
Okay. G?
I've been attending for about the last year. I went on and off when I taught at SPASH when there were things coming up that I was interested in or concerned me. But since I've been going this last year, it was because of the referendum coming up, and I wanted to be up on all the things that dealt with that referendum. And I took notes.
Did anyone grade them?
I have a couple pages on Jeff. No, not really, not really. Well, maybe I do. No, but you know, it's wonderful to see how people work together. Of course, I know that most of the work is done behind the scenes, and then as they present it as a board, you know, I think, you know, it's a great lesson to see how the board acts with each other and to the public. So I've been going for about a year now.
Okay. Ann?
All right, so I don't regularly attend the meetings and I don't view them. However, I have been skimming through the minutes. I know it's on Monday nights. However, I have heard that it is a limited space in there, so there's not much room for people, the community members to come in there and listen, especially if it's a hot topic, and that you actually have to slide a card or be able to gain access through a key card, so it's not an open environment where you can just actually walk in, is what I heard. But again, I work with the youth, so a lot of nights I'm working with the youth to see what they're looking for, and I'm also working with families to see what they need from me, not just with the school, with education system, but with what I do as well.
Okay, the second audience question, and this will be G answering first. The voters just approved 2 referenda. What are you most excited to see funded from those?
The maintenance of our facilities, which we dearly needed. We had a failed referendum a while ago, I can't remember what year it was. Back up a second. I went to speak with the business manager of the district. I interviewed him. And he got a lot of good information from him. And I asked him point blank, why did we have to borrow the money to fix the facilities? So, because we had a failed referendum. So that cost us dearly. I mean, it was great that it passed. It had to pass or we'd be in real trouble right now. But it cost us. And it cost us, by his estimation, $48 million in interest over the next 20 years. It's going to be done. It had to be done. It's the only way we could do it at that point. If I were on the board, I'd want to take steps with the other board members to try to make sure that doesn't happen again. And of course, that means a referendum. And that means, pay me now or pay me later. If you pay as you go with money that you have, of course, that's a lot better. You get it done earlier. And it doesn't cost as much, you don't have to pay interest, and so forth. We're doing this 20 years. If we do this again in 20 years, we'll have paid over $100 million to a bank to let us use their money. And I would not like to see that happen. So, red light, red sign, sorry.
Okay. Ann?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. I will have to dig it back up. The voters just approved 2 referenda. What are you most excited to see funded from these referenda?
There are a couple of different things, but it's exciting to see that laptops, I believe, were given out for McDill or one of the elementary schools. So I believe that's a first step into allowing our younger students to have access to internet and whatnot. And actually from the last forum I heard that there's Kahoot, which is access for families who aren't able to afford internet access. Another thing that I like to see is, again, I really go back to mental health and retainment of our educators. I really hope that with this referendum passing that we are able to secure funds so that we can invest in our teachers and other staff so that we're able to develop them so that they can invest more in our children, their students. And as adults, we know that we spend more time at our employment than we do at home. So what can we do for them to be comfortable at their work as their second home?
Jeffrey?
Well, it's hard to pick what I'm more excited about, being able to fund our staff and our teachers or, fix up the buildings. And you need both to have a strong education system. And I am happy to report tonight that the bond issue actually came in below what was originally estimated, and it's only going to cost us $36 million for interest. Now, that may seem like a lot of money, but do the math, and that if you figure that maybe inflation might be about 2% a year, the cost of construction is going to continue to rise, and the cost of delaying any of the repairs and maintenance on the existing buildings is going to far exceed the cost of doing it now. As a matter of fact, there are some costs that have gone up that we are paying probably more now than we would have if we would have done it when we had maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So actually, I believe that we're going to make money, save money by borrowing it and getting the work done now and then paying over the long term. Plus, we get to use the new facilities and take advantage of the financial investment that we're putting in our schools.
Okay. Our next audience question, we'll have Ann answering first. And here's the question. You all have different perspectives on life in the classrooms. Have you heard or observed anything regarding class sizes or staffing that concern you?
I attended Madison School, Washington for 2 weeks at the end of my 3rd grade year, and then Jefferson. I remember school class sizes would range for like 15 to 17, and we really got the focus from our teachers individually. And then as a parent, as a mom myself, I'm looking at the class size, and I'm looking at the class list, and I'm looking at all the requirements that the teachers are having to do now, standardized testing, individual testing, getting their conferences together, report cards, and I really feel like classroom sizes should be reduced so that the teachers are focused on the students individually. And I get it that there are larger classroom sizes right now, but I would really like to see smaller class sizes so that children are more focused on what they're doing, and also so that teachers are able to pick up which student is learning at a faster pace, which student is having a little bit harder time grasping an idea, so that they can individualize their learning plans for those students.
Jeffrey?
I know that there are challenges regarding class sizes with some of our teachers and some of our classes. I think what really exacerbates the problem is the percentage of special needs kids in these classes. And in some cases, I think you can't look at it just straight from numbers. You have to look at it that the challenges that the teachers face. And there are definitely some areas where the class sizes are to a point where they're very challenging for the teacher to handle. And I do know that it's been up in front. I sit on the Educational Services Committee, and that's always been an issue. They bring it up, we discuss it, and are doing whatever we can with the limited resources that we do have to try and take care of those problems. But yes, I am aware that there are issues with class sizes in some classes.
Obviously, I have personal experience with this. I was a chemistry teacher, and our chemistry lab is designed for 24 people. And while I was teaching, our administration did a great job of keeping to those numbers, because it's just not safe in a chemistry room to have any more than that. People bump into each other, they run over the top of each other, all their stuff is piled up in the way. But I had occasion to go back and do a long-term sub for the lady that took my job. Something went out.
Boy, you're just breaking everything tonight.
Usually don't have a microphone, Jeff.
Here, use mine.
I'm usually used to talking to a bunch of teenagers who don't really care what I'm saying. Hello? No, they do care. But when I did my long-term sub, 12 weeks, there were no classes had 24 in them. Some were 29, 28, and we had to do the labs and things like that with numbers like that. It was unsafe. So our numbers have creeped up a little bit. But right now, when I go around to other schools and in our schools, usually most of my student teachers are in the elementary school. I see class sizes of 20 to 25, somewhere in that area, which on the surface looks pretty good. The one I was in this morning, the kindergarten teacher was doing a fabulous job. It was like a 3-ring circus. She was ordering kids everywhere, all over the place, and there's just too many. Bobby has to get up and move around, and Susie can't sit in her chair because she just got too much energy, things like that, and she needs people. She did have an aide in there to help her, but that's a lot of people, especially when you send your little boy or girl to school and you want the special attention that teacher should give them. What's an optimal size? Research shows, maybe 15 to 18 kids in a class is kind of optimal, but we haven't been there in a long time. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, well, went out.
So, our next question, let me think. I'm going to combine two, and that is, what are the current opportunities and challenges facing the school district? So I think we're back to Jeffrey answering first.
Oh, okay. Challenges and opportunities. We have some wonderful opportunities. We are very fortunate to live in the community we do because of the tremendous support not only from our community members, as evidenced by the passing of the referendums, but also from our business partners. And we have a great partnership with some of the larger businesses. Century Insurance has been a great partner, and they provided a lot of support for us to get our internet and devices for our students. We partner with some of the machine shops in the community and some of the other businesses that provide mentoring and apprenticeships for some of our students. And you know, that's a great opportunity for our students. Some of the challenges, there are a number of challenges, and in spite of the fact that we passed those referendums, there will continue to be financial challenges for school districts. We are fortunate, again, I know we're going to be fine for a while, but ultimately, you know, the state still has to come up and they have to fund the public education. Probably one of the bigger challenges, and I'm sure some people would agree that the mental health issues are becoming more and more challenging, not only for our teachers in the classroom, but for the community and for, you know, the staff and the teachers that are working in the district.
G?
I'm gonna try.
Oh, it works.
Is this one? No, okay.
It's working now.
It'll probably go out in a second. All right, one challenge is to, as stated in the strategic plan that you guys made up, to retain quality staff, to hire quality staff. And there are a lot of things that go into trying to keep good people here. Atmosphere, town, all the things that make us want to live in Stevens Point, but one of the things is money. And that's a hard fact. So I did some research to see where we are according to other districts, and you know, we're ahead of a few, but we're behind a lot of them, comparable districts. You know, maybe $3,000 per average for teacher pay, which we should certainly address. But then to say address it is, where do you come up with the money? Well, the other challenge is we are currently dead last in student cost of comparable districts. We're at $11,600 per student. State average is $13,100. We're $1,500 behind the state average. Comparable school districts in the area, DC Everest is about $1,000 ahead of us. And I look at that and I say, well, we have about 7,500 students. $1,000, that'd be $7.5 million. That would have paid for our maintenance all the way out through. We would never have to borrow any money. So that'd be one challenge, is how do we get that number up?
Ann?
So I think a challenge that we are facing is, I think from what I've heard from whether it's staff of the school districts or from students of the school districts, is that how teachers are responding to students of different ethnic backgrounds. I think sometimes without proper training, proper knowledge, sometimes it's really difficult to assess what's going on, or automatically it's assumed, oh, the child has ADHD, or you know, they're just rowdy. I think it's a great opportunity to be putting in the culture response teaching or the CREATE initiative. So that's culturally responsive education for all initiative and enhancement. What this is it's really getting the schools to be involved in what the cultural differences are, and getting that and seeing where the students are coming from and how they're reacting in a certain way, because there are many folks of color have historical trauma, even though we didn't receive that immediately, we have that secondary. And so from the trauma that our parents carried, from our grandparents carried, it really carries back down, and not a lot of the Stevens Point really doesn't know too much about that. So I think getting that culture response teaching into our school district would really help the teachers understand the students more.
Okay, our next audience question, will go to G first. Some improvements to the sports facilities in the district were removed from the referendum despite the need. The district consistently competes at high levels in the D1 division. How would you work to continue support for school sports?
First of all, the sports part of the budget is pretty small. A lot of sports teams raise their own funds. When I coached wrestling, we had to raise our own funds for a lot of things. I think I was the last one to get the district to buy a wrestling mat, because all the ones since have been bought by funds raised by the wrestling club itself. As far as facilities goes, I know better than anyone. I shared a room, my wrestling team shared a room with the gymnastics team, which, you know, looking around the conference, it's a lot different everywhere. People have their own rooms to practice and so on. Sports is important. It teaches a lot of things that are difficult to teach in the classroom, like teamwork, hard work can get you somewhere, things like that. We need to maintain it. We need to maintain our facilities. Frankly, I think we've done all right. I think with the sports facilities that I see, while, I mean, they work. We make them work. Could they be better? Sure. But I think there are a few other things that we need to look at first before we start wholesale changes in those facilities.
Okay. Ann?
For sports, I've got 2 kids. One is at PJ's and he does track. And I also have a wrestler in elementary. So with supporting the sports facility, I think sports is important. However, what kind of scares me is that when I'm walking down Smash, I see all these trophies and all these walls of awards and stuff, and it's all, a lot of it is sports. And I know it's really sports focused because, I mean, Stevens Point is awesome. We've got really great sports teams here. But I really feel like, you know, with the facilities that we have now at the schools, I think it's sufficient with where our students are participating. I mean, I do agree that right now at Smash, the gymnastic team and the wrestling team are still sharing space. However, I think they only bump heads, well, I can't say that for sure because I don't know what the school schedule is like for high school wrestling. But I know that they share facility, and I haven't heard that there's any issues. I know when my student is up there wrestling, I know that coaches always remind, you know, don't bring the youngsters up because we have sports equipment, it's really expensive, make sure no one's on there. And so as a parent, I always tell my, if I have another child with me, I, you know, let them know, don't go on there because that's expensive stuff. So really just going back to, hey, the students really knowing that they have to take care of what we have now because we don't have the budget to continually buy new equipment.
Jeffrey?
When we completed the evaluation of the facilities in the school district, there were some issues regarding the sports facilities that were brought up, and they were actually on the plan. And there were a lot of other things on the plan that didn't end up being what was presented to the community, because we had to make a decision as to what the community could reasonably bear. I would personally would love to have seen those plans included in there, but again, we had to make a decision on what we thought was going to be fair to the community, fair to the school district, and we had to prioritize. We couldn't get everything we wanted. We had to determine what was most important for our students and for the staff and the faculty at the school district. And unfortunately, there were some, what I think were very much needed additional sports facilities that we were unable to bring forward at this time. I hope that, in the near future, we'll be able to take another look at it. But, we have to make those hard decisions. That's part of the job. That's part of what the community has put us in the seats for.
Okay. This will be our last audience question. After this question, we'll go to closing statements, and I was told closing statements will be 2 minutes each. This last question will be answered by Ann first. As a board member, what policies do you think are needed to ensure that all students are part of an inclusive environment and that their identities are represented?
So I'll start off with a group of known as Sisterhood. In 2017, Sisterhood wrote a letter to the school board expressing their concerns that they did not feel safe and respected among their white peers. There was also no support after the Junction City shooting and transgender bathroom incidents. The board was given an opportunity to ask the community on how the board can start learning. Only 2 members replied. One stated the concerns should be addressed, then in a later email the same day, the same person replied after the Sisterhood responded that they would be at that meeting, that it would be asked if Sisterhood's concerns would be addressed. The second person who responded stated, in quotes, "Thank you for your thoughts. Don't forget that solutions begin with teachers, principals, administrators, and then with superintendents. I urge you to pass your concerns for specific incidents through the organizational chain of command for the most efficient resolution to any actual problems." So what I see here is that students of color they see what's wrong and they voice their concerns. They bring this to the school board. 2 members of the board had addressed this, and it wasn't even acknowledging that there was an issue. The Junction City, he was charged with a hate crime. He was convicted. There was no support for our home students. I know a few students that was their immediate family. There was nothing in the school for their support. Ben Franklin, 2 years later, I have a student who is still traumatized. When we asked her about it, she said, yes, there were counselors, but it was never followed up on. We need more support for our students of color.
Okay, Jeffrey.
I will not speak to any specific issue that may have happened in the school district. As a matter of fact, because of the position that we take, where we may sit in judgment on an issue, we have to remain impartial, and as a result, we intentionally stay out of the details because it can come back and haunt us if we're prejudiced in making our decision. So we do have professionals in our school district whose job it is to address those issues. From a policy standpoint, we have just gone through a very lengthy process of updating all of our school policies. And it was a Herculean task, and I think our committee did an outstanding job to look at and consider all of the issues in front of us, including, some students that might be marginalized, to make sure that they're included, it's inclusive, that there is no discrimination going on. So as far as our policies are concerned, I think we've done an outstanding job to address those. Now, there may be, again, issues in the community that may have not been addressed satisfactorily to some parties, and I guess that's always going to be the case. But we have a lot of faith in the staff, the administration that is addressing those and dealing with them. And when it comes time for us to be involved, we'll be able to be impartial if we have to sit in judgment.
Steve?
Most of my student teachers are in elementary school classrooms, and when I walk into them, I see signs like tolerance, kindness. I see Martin Luther King's picture, Ruby Bridges, a book by Ruby Bridges. I just saw one, where was I? Wednesday. The class was reading a book about Ruby Bridges. Rosa Parks, things like that. So teachers are doing it in the lower grades. I hear now, I was at a school board meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a required diversity class for all students. And that is something, I don't know how long that's been there, but that's a step in the right direction. We all have a long way to go. It's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, but things like that can make it closer, make us get closer to that ideal where everybody is accepted. And being a little more, how would we say, sensitive to those issues. I'm sure that staff gets trained on those things all the time. When I was teaching, we had it all the time there too. we can't, it's not good enough to say it takes a while. It should happen right away. It's a shortcoming that a lot of people have. We can't accept that. And curriculum, making sure we have diversity in our curriculum, things like that. Books by minority authors, things like that is going to help. And that happens. It's happening right now.
Okay, we'll now move on to our closing statements. The closing statement is an opportunity for the candidates to comment on topics not covered in the questions. The order of their 2-minute closing statements will be chosen by random drawing once again. Jeffrey.
You sure that's not the only name in that?
Anybody else can pick. It doesn't have to be me.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and again to all the citizens that came out on this beautiful. This was spring, by the way. I hope you didn't miss it. So winter's coming back tomorrow. But no, as serving 6 years on the school board has been extremely rewarding for me. And I have seen changes, remarkable changes in our school district, on the board. I am not an expert on education, nor will I ever pretend to be. We have some incredible experts on education that work for our school district. We put our faith in them. We are responsible to set policy and to provide a vision for the school district and provide direction for our administration to build that school district that you want. And our job is to be able to draw that from you and articulate that in a vision, in a strategic plan that has been, by the way, very faithfully carried out in an incredibly professional manner by the administration of the school district. They understand it's not a document that we wrote and we put on a shelf and we visit once in a while. It's something they live by every day. All of our meetings, every agenda item reflects how it supports the main pillars of our strategic plan. So there's direction, there's purpose. And that's just exciting to be part of that group. And I really would appreciate your vote on April 2nd. And again, thank you all for being here.
Anne.
Thank you. So I talk about a lot about what the school needs or what changes needs to be made. I do just have to share that a lot of my peers and folks who graduated with me in 2003 have gone off to school, have become successful, and they never returned back to Stevens Point. I chose to live here in Stevens Point mainly because I love the school system that I attended. Again, attending K through 12 here, I had smaller class sizes. I will always say this, one of my teachers, Lois Coles, was just this amazing person. She would take her time and really get to know each individual student. You could walk in, and if you were off a little bit, she could just tell. And she wouldn't make it a big deal. She would just kind of walk around and talk to all the students, say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And if you weren't, she would sit there and listen to you. And I feel like the school system has changed a lot from when I started going. I really do want to see that relationship between the teachers and the students, along with the family. I know that I spoke about it before with communication with the school, that it's great now that we're getting text messages and emails from the school districts or even our teachers. And that's something that has come a long ways, at least from when I went to elementary school. But I really do hope you all come out April 2nd and make your vote count. Again, my skill sets here are a lot different than a lot of the candidates. I feel like I really do have real conversations with families in the community whose voices aren't being heard. I really feel like I am helping, if I were to be elected to the board, that I would be their voice for them in the community.
My wife and I came here in the 1980s to teach. We'd been teaching in other places around the state, waiting for openings in the Stevens Point School District, because we heard such wonderful things. Outside of Madison, this was the place to be. When we got into this district, we were thrilled. And it wasn't a disappointment. I'm not running because I think it's a terrible district and we have to fix things. Well, some things we can fix as always, but it's a wonderful place and it's a wonderful school district. There are always things that can be made just a little bit better, or, you know, in my case, I feel that if I were elected to the board, I'd be working with 8 other people. And when you have 8 minds and 9 minds put together, you come up with better things than just one mind. So the ideas I've expressed today are ideas that I have that I would advocate in a group situation. And, you know, I pointed out some things with budget and things like that that I think could be a little bit better. You know, and Ann's passionate plea about making our district a more tolerant place, a more welcoming place to all people, is something that, you know, me being part of the majority, I can't walk in her shoes, but I see it. I see it in schools all the time. And I see what people have done to try to fix that and continue to fix that, and that's one area that I think, at Stephen's point, we could really work on to make our town more tolerant, starting with the schools. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to all of the candidates for the time and energy you have invested in the Lancaster School Board and for participating in this forum. We hope you can stay to talk with constituents. Thank you to the staff at the annex here for their assistance and allowing the use of this facility. And thank you to all of you for your attendance and attention. Please watch to see when this forum will be broadcast on Channel 984 and share those times with those who were not able to attend tonight. And please remember to vote on April 2nd. Thank you.